Hello and welcome to the Tank Club. We've got the Elder Scrolls Online Scribes of Fate DLC on the horizon, and there's been some big changes to the Harmony jewellery trait. So we've been thinking about what is the best jewellery going to be, and we wanted to kind of put some numbers together and test it out as best as we can, and this is the information that we have managed to find out. So the way that we're testing this is we've got to kind of build a base build, which is a Nord Dragon Knight using 5 Yolnahkrin, 5 Pearlescent Ward, 2 Tremor Scale. It's a 5-1-1 setup, all divines, all tri-stat. We've got the Smoke Bear Food, the Atronach Munderstone, 64 points into health. We're using a potion to show these current numbers on recovery, and it's a tri-stat potion. On the CP, Ironclad, Duelist Rebuff, Bulwark, Enduring Resolve, Boundless Vitality, Fortified Rejuvenation, and Bracing Anchor. And what we've done is we've created a base build that's using jewellery that has nothing to do with the test, so it's got nothing to do with reduced cost or recovery. And then we've put that up against Infused Magicka Recovery Jewellery, Infused Tri-Cost Reduction Jewellery, Infused Magicka Cost Reduction, Harmony Magicka Recovery, and Harmony Tri-Cost Reduction. So the things we tried to consider here, we've took the recovery of all of these options. We've also got the skill cost of each individual skill on a kind of standard Dragon Knight tank build. We've then figured out a 60-second rotation with trying to maintain these skills with a 100% uptime. So in 60 seconds, you would typically use 4 Pierce Armors, you'd recast Engulfing Flames 3 times. If you wanted to maintain Stone Giant, you've got 12 casts. If you wanted to maintain Brittle, 15 casts of Frost Clench. So we've added those all in there. And then what we've done is, based on how much the skills cost, we've worked out how many times it would cost to cast these skills over a 60-second period to maintain 100% uptime. What we've then done is worked out how much resource drain that costs. So how much stamina does it cost? How much magicka does it cost? But we've also taken into account how much the stamina cost would be if you didn't maintain Stone Giant, because there's a lot of tanks out there that might potentially not use Stone Giant because it is a very difficult to manage skill and micromanage in a lot of fight situations. What we've then done is looked at the recovery gain. So we've taken stamina recovery, magicka recovery, the Constitution passive, the DK Combustion passive, Undaunted Command, the Orb Synergy gain. So when you use an Orb Synergy once every 20 seconds, we've included the stamina gain from that. We've then got the DK Helping Hands passive, the magicka gain from balance, and then obviously when we're using the Harmony Jewellery, when using the Synergy, we've added the Harmony Jewellery buff in there as well. What we've done then is looked at the total stamina gain from all of those sources, but we've also taken the stamina gain without recovery, because we've got to consider that some people are going to block more than others. In this sheet, we've accounted for blocking once every 5 seconds. So we're losing, so as you can see there, we've put stamina recovery 20 ticks. We've taken 10 ticks off for just somebody who might only block 1 second every 5 to block a attack from a boss. But if you're somebody who blocks a lot more, so we've gone down the route of testing what it'd be like if you were perma blocking, then we've given that as well. We've then got the total magicka gain, and then we're kind of comparing how much drain you get from your skills versus how much you've gained from all the various sources. So as you can see with the base build here, we've spent 44,652 stamina, we've gained 53,340, so that gives us a surplus of 8,688. However, this is maintaining Stone Giant and infrequent blocking. If we don't have any recovery because we're blocking the whole fight, would actually be 17,000 less stamina than what we've gained. So you would have to heavy attack more, you would have to do other things. So if you were using a jewellery setup that wasn't any of the ones that we're using here, you would have to apply quite a lot of heavy attacks. This is every 60 seconds. So if you wanted to keep a good rotation of skills, you would have to be heavy attacking with this base build. When you look at the magicka as well, there's not enough magicka, so we actually spent 6,800 more magicka than what we had, so you'd have to cast more balance skills to get that. Now, obviously, if we didn't have any magicka recovery and we weren't keeping up Stone Giant, we would have almost a 10k surplus of stamina. So the important thing here is looking now at the different jewellery options. So Infused Magicka Recovery would be exactly the same as the base build in terms of its stamina gain versus drain, because there's nothing here affecting stamina. It's when we get to the magicka side of things where this becomes really strong. So the magicka gain versus drain would have nearly 30k additional magicka per 60 seconds with this setup, with this rotation, with this situation, based upon the things that we've cast. So this is why this is a very, very strong option. So the way you've got to look at this is you would have nearly 30k extra magicka to potentially cast more skills in terms of Igneous Shield, and that would give you more stamina as well. So even though you've got a big deficit of stamina, if you're blocking a lot and trying to maintain Stone Giant and things like that, it wouldn't be an issue as much because you would be able to cast more magicka based skills, and because it's a Dragon Knight, then obviously you'd be able to switch that over from magicka to stamina. Now if you were on a different class, you wouldn't be able to benefit from the same Dragon Knight passives, so it wouldn't be as effective. But on a Dragon Knight, Infused Magicka Recovery here is obviously quite a good option. When we now look at Infused Tri-Cost Reduction, there's obviously a big difference here between Infused Tri-Cost Reduction and the other options in Jewellery, because the cost of all the skills that we've cast is much less. So when we look at the stamina drain here, 10,000 stamina less than it is with the Magicka Recovery setup, and that's what's important here. So if you are going to cast Stone Giant, then you are really going to need to use Infused Tri-Cost Reduction compared to Magicka Recovery, because as you can see, you're saving so much stamina, and it's really, really helpful. So when you are using Stone Giant, you've really got to learn not to block as well, because you do want to be gaining the stamina recovery. If you're using Tri-Cost Reduction, the stamina gain versus drain, 18,348 more stamina gained than what we used if we're using this Jewellery setup. But this is only if you don't block. Now, if you do block, and you block quite frequently, then you are going to be in a deficit of 7,731. But that's still 10k less than the Infused Magicka Recovery option. Now, if you were to have no recovery and also not keep up Stone Giant, you would have a surplus of 11k, and you'd have a surplus of magicka as well, because we're spending 10k less magicka than what we're gaining. Now, this is more of a balanced thing. So if you are blocking more often, this is more balanced than the Infused Magicka Recovery option, but both are usable. You can use them both. To be fair, the Magicka Recovery in a situation where you're not using Stone Giant and you're not blocking would be better, because you are gaining a lot more resources back than you are with the Tri-Cost Reduction. But when you're a very active caster, then using Tri-Cost Reduction is obviously very valuable, as you can see from these numbers. If you also look at the recovery, it's really important with cost reduction to have really high recovery, because if you don't have enough recovery, you can't actually afford to keep maintaining the skill casts. But here, the 2,172 Magicka Recovery was enough to maintain this particular rotation and still have a surplus of resources. Now with this, it's expecting a perfect rotation. So if you were to be overlapping skills, blocking more, you would have a problem that you would have less than the resources here. So it doesn't allow for as much room for error as some of the other setups, but it is a very, very strong option in terms of it is allowing you to like save on stamina. So if you are using stamina skills, it's worth it. But let's say you take Stone Giant out of the equation here, then it would become much less valuable. The Infused Magicka Cost Reduction, we're not really going to look into this because, as we can see from the numbers, it's the same as Infused Magicka Recovery in terms of the stamina benefit, but the magicka benefit is way, way less effective. So if you are on a build that uses virtually all magicka skills, as you can see from this situation here, using Magicka Recovery is way, way better than using Magicka Cost Reduction. So Magicka Cost Reduction isn't as good. So you are just better off stacking up that Magicka Recovery in a situation where you're on a build that's using virtually all magicka skills. In this build that we're using here would be all magicka skills basically if we take Stone Giant out of the equation. Now the interesting point is as we move on to Harmony Jewellery. Now what you've got to remember here, we are taking into consideration only one synergy every 20 seconds, and that's the orb synergy. So we're assuming that our group are providing us with an orb, whether that's a healer or one of the damage dealers. We're just using one synergy. So I'm not making this sway in favor of Harmony in any way by doing that. I've also added the Undaunted Command and Orb Synergy Stamina Gain into the other equations for the other jewellery as well, to try and make it balance out so that it's a fair execution of showing you what information we've got. Now with the Harmony Magicka Recovery, the Stamina Gain versus the Stamina Drain, 16,609. This is in a situation where we're not blocking. Now if we are blocking and we've got 0 Stamina Recovery, the drain's 9,471, which is a little bit less than the Infused Tri-Cost Reduction. So Tri-Cost Reduction is slightly better in a no recovery situation while maintaining Stone Giant. Now if we consider perma blocking and not using Stone Giant, using Harmony Magicka Recovery, we're a 17,500 stamina surplus. And then we've also got a 20k Magicka surplus. So in total, we've got a hell of a lot of extra resources that we can use to spend on other things like roll dodges and chains, igneous shields, whatever it is you need to use. You can see there's a lot of extra resources there. If we were to add in additional synergies, so I've kind of put in here additional synergies. If you're able to rely on 2 different synergies on cooldown, this is where Harmony becomes better. So the Harmony Magicka Recovery becomes extremely strong in a situation where you've got 2 synergies. So it's already very good, but if we had a second synergy, we'd be able to maintain Stone Giant while perma blocking and still have a stamina surplus, only slightly by 765. So Harmony Magicka Recovery becomes stronger than Infused cost reduction quite considerably once we have 2 consistent synergies. That's not always going to be the case though, because not every group's going to be able to provide that. If you're in an Alkosh running group, you might not want to be stealing all the synergies. So this isn't necessarily an option, but if you were able to gain 2 synergies, then this would be extremely strong. The Magicka gain as well from the 2 synergies on cooldown, 25,000 Magicka. Now all of the other options would also benefit slightly from an extra synergy, but they would only get the Undaunted command passive benefit there, because obviously a second synergy wouldn't be the orb synergy, so I've not included the stamina benefit of a second orb synergy. But obviously the Harmony Jewellery, for 3 pieces of Harmony Jewellery, using 3 synergies per minute, so 1 every 20 seconds, that is a lot of resources. That's nearly 8,000 resources. Now the interesting thing here is Harmony tri-cost reduction. So if you are in a situation where you're trying to maintain Stone Giant, you're perma blocking, and you've got tri-cost reduction, you've only got a deficit of 3,400 stamina here, which you would be able to cover that with 1 heavy attack. And this is actually much superior to the Infused tri-cost reduction and the Harmony Magicka Recovery, because it's much less resources in deficit. Now, you've also got the fact if you're not blocking, you've got a huge surplus of stamina. If you're blocking permanently and not using Stone Giant, you've got a lot of stamina, the same as the Magicka Recovery version. The Magicka Gain versus Drain is slightly less effective with tri-cost reduction compared to the Magicka Recovery. You can see that they're quite similar in terms of situations where it's perma blocking and not using Stone Giant. Obviously, if you add again a second synergy, this is where the Harmony Magicka Recovery is vastly superior in terms of Magicka, but the Harmony tri-cost reduction is superior in terms of the stamina benefits. So what it looks like from this, obviously this doesn't cover every single individual situation. It's impossible to create something that's dynamic for every trial, every dungeon, every fight. This is just to give you some kind of base numbers based on doing a rotation, 45 skills in 60 seconds, maintaining all your buffs and debuffs on a Dragon Knight tank. We looked at all the cost of casting those skills. We've looked at all the things you'll gain, and all the things you'll gain if you're blocking, if you're not blocking, if you are blocking infrequently or really frequently. You've got to remember here that the block cost is 1,094, and we're not using anything like Sturdy, we're not using any block cost reduction, we're not using anything that will reduce our block cost apart from the passives and passive CPs. This is a big surplus of stamina in a lot of situations. There's a lot of stamina gains. It looks to me like the more synergies that you've got, obviously the more powerful Harmony becomes. So Harmony is going to stack up in power the more synergies you've got. That's not always an option though, like I've said. If you only have 1 synergy to rely on, Harmony still has a comparable value to all the other jewelry traits. So even if you only have 1 synergy, it's still very, very strong. Depending on your playstyle, there's going to be different options available. So if you are using Infused tri-cost reduction, if you are somebody who doesn't block very much, then that is going to be a good option. You have to have high recovery, you have to be casting skills. If you don't cast skills very often, if you are permanently blocking, an Infused tri-cost reduction isn't going to work as good, potentially, as the Harmony tri-cost reduction or even the Harmony Magicka Recovery. So some really interesting information here. Obviously things could definitely change over the next couple of weeks in terms of the PTS and the strength of Harmony. They might diminish that, they might change it. So this is just kind of a first look at this particular thing, and we're going to have more information as the PTS progresses. I'd be interested to hear any of your comments below as well in terms of what you think about this and whether it's something you'll consider switching to, especially, like I say, if you're a perma blocking tank who doesn't have an Alkosh user in your group. This is allowing you to be able to do that because you've got the options there to just spam synergies, gain huge amounts of resources, and overpower every other jewelry trait. So that is everything for this video, guys. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.